So welcome once again to the three of you. Maybe some others will join us to the third part, to the third day of our webinar series, to the go-to-market customer-focused action. What we had on the first day was going into customer empathy, the problem-solution fitness, working a little bit with the customer empathy map. Day two, so yesterday we had product market fitness, finding the right content hub, building the right storyline with a few, I think, useful tools that I showed you for understanding underserved needs and also understanding the storylines of others, of maybe your competition. And today we want to go into the go-to-market execution. Out of my experience is what works and what maybe does not really work, where I had the experience in the past. And I'm also looking forward to discuss with you, where are you currently standing with your go-to-market to build a good and sustainable portfolio that is not only working for one day and the next day it will break. Okay, so starting with as a short recap for the last 2 days, we are typically talking about customer centricity. And when we're talking about customer centricity, here I have I think I only found it in a German on a German platform. I have a good example and a bad example. I think this one is a bad example. In terms of the value proposition and stating a value proposition. What we see here is a typical home page, typical landing page of a, let's say, more old-fashioned CRM, but this CRM or this big software solution is sold these days. And what we very often see there is if I try to translate that into a simple form, is very often they talk about themselves, about their product, about that they are the greatest, that they are the best in their form. So actually, this is a bad example of customer approach. Out of my experience, is what we see, what does not really work. And there is also good examples, and one of them is what I found with Shore. This is a Munich-based later stage startup. They are currently, I think, very successful in what they are doing. And what you can read here is something like, say goodbye to time-consuming paperwork and focus on what really matters. Something like starting a dialogue with the customer approach. That is more, so translated, your interests, or we are interested in your needs, something like that. And you can check yourself in all your so far created contents, how you are also approaching the customers or potential customers. The easiest is on your website yourself. Just go to Command F or Control F and do the quick and dirty search, like how often would you find the word we, us, our, or the product name compared to you, your, so kind of these words. And if there is an imbalance or if you're almost only using we, us, then maybe it's a good point to think about changing a little bit in the wording to make it less product centric and business centric and more customer centric to the way. Okay, so that as a short recap from the first 2 days, understanding the customers, approaching their needs, approaching their blood pressure points with the right content. And today we want to go into go-to-market execution. And therefore, I already, from some of you within the onboarding form, got a little bit of information of how does your go-to-market with some channels that you're currently using look look so far in terms of what are the 3 to 5 marketing activities that you are doing so far, and if you would reduce that to only one, what would that be? And your answers were pretty mixed. So we had some teams, some startups that are using face-to-face meetings, social media, food blogs. We're having other existing platforms like Facebook, LinkedIn. Others had fairs, and also some of you don't know yet so far what kind of channel really works. And I think I had it in my intro on day one, like what was my real first, so the why behind starting all this traction-wise thing is, one of the big things I had, or the big issues I had at the start was, where is the structure in marketing? And basing on the good fundamental of understanding customers, building the right contents, then the next thing is finding the right structure and finding a right way to not waste your time and your energy in different channels. And therefore I found a good way, and probably some of you know or already have been in touch with the traction channels. I can only recommend this kind of structure. It is not, let's say, all in all detail, but it has a grouping, and here it is just a grouping in the alphabet order, in terms of 19 channels. And some channels are some kind of collections of different further smaller channels. For example, existing platforms that could be social platforms like LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, whatever, but also platforms like Amazon. So platforms you are dependent on if you want to market on them. Then also offline events where you can, for example, attend these events as a presenter, as an organizer, or as an attendee as well. So there are different smaller topics, and I think if we go pretty crisp through these channels, I would try to be very focused. I have for these 19 channels just prepared a little bit of an idea that you know what is behind these channels if you don't know yet what are what's in these channels and where are they used for. Starting with affiliate marketing. What is affiliate marketing? Actually, it's a recommendation, mostly online, where you give affiliates kind of a commission that they bring you new leads or new sales, and typically use this for the top of the funnel and the middle of the funnel, so from attention to understanding. And you will, so I sometimes at these channels I added some examples where you could find an idea who uses some affiliate marketing approaches. The next channel is business development, so setting up partnerships without a direct monetary advantage. That might be target group owners, that's associations, that's clubs, that's political parties, and so on. So that's somehow organizations where you could have a benefit from connecting with them, and they could have a benefit connecting with you, where it's not a direct customer relationship at all. You at these examples, so this is in Germany, but you will find that in your countries as well if you're outside Germany. Here we have verbände.com or Hochschulkompass. That's a good way to start, for example, with the associations or with the universities, to check them and get a list out of them. Then community building. This is where you, with your potential customers or together also with your existing customers, can build a real community. That's probably not really at the top of the funnel for getting attention, but more in the area of considering, understanding, building loyalty beneath your existing and potential customers. And one idea is how you can start that is, for example, how Startup Grind is doing this. I, for myself, came actually by chance to building also a small group of or a small community a few years ago, when I actually was doing some customer research for in the area of introvert entrepreneurs, where I just asked into a few other, in this case, Facebook groups, if there is some kind of interest to talk to me about how do introvert entrepreneurs market their business, market themselves, how are they approaching it. And it actually came from my interviewees' side that they told me, hey, it might make sense that we set up a community for that. In that case, we just started this in a closed group on Facebook. So using some kind of a platform is the typical way for that, but it doesn't have to be only online. Then one big and important channel, I think we have separated that already yesterday a little bit, is content marketing, because you can play content marketing during the whole funnel. What is, I think, the important part there is we need to provide added value to our target group. This could be in the form of visual content, audio content, and also audiovisual content. Some ideas are, and I think we had that also yesterday in the end, building some case studies, using interviews for setting up your expertise as well, setting up some white papers, ebooks, and something similar. And there are some inspiration that you could also use for that. Then email marketing is actually one way to, and very often it gets a little bit, with, let's say, bad promotion in the area of if you only use it as a newsletter. Actually, email marketing has much more potential than the most of us typically use these days, because with nurturing your potential customers and your existing customers, you probably won't sell from one day to another. But if you nurture existing customers, you can segment them extremely easily, because you find out who is reacting to which kind of content in that way. And therefore it doesn't need to be, or it shouldn't be so one newsletter for all, but more like where could you send a specific targeted email to a specific group of your customers, where you, out of data points, already created some insights from them. I think good examples for Germany is the online marketing rockstars. I think they're also sitting in Hamburg, and also in my experience, the Y Combinator, what they are doing there. So email marketing, typically is not at the attention part of the funnel. Then engineering is marketing. That might be a channel that you are not yet or not yet have been in touch with for yourself. Very often I get asked, well, what is this engineering? This is where you maybe already have created some kind of assets. That could be some checklist, that could be some calculator, or also some fancier things that you're currently using for yourself, and you might ask, maybe it makes sense to use that for marketing reasons, to give it also away to your potential customers and bring them value. So some ideas are spreadsheets, templates, calculators, that could be in the form like HubSpot did it with their website grader, so something where you can check how good is your website. Or also this from ourselves. So we have built a customer acquisition calculator a few years ago, And this is pretty easy. So no coding needed. This is a spreadsheet in Google Sheets where you very easy could estimate on how big are your customer acquisition costs in different channels. And to be honest, this is one of the most important parts why potential customers belong or come into our email marketing list then. So that very easy thing that I never expected it to be that helpful. Then existing platforms, I think I told a little bit, it's the platforms like social, but also Amazon, forums, app stores, everything where you are a little bit depending on others, on their let's say on their infrastructure. And very often I think I showed you a few on day one. You're having a lot of possibilities on these platforms, and very often we only use the limited or the small things. I got here some information in the chat. I'm trying to check. Where is my chat here? Just give me a second. My chat is gone. No, it's bad. Hey chat, where are you?
Hi Andre, it's Russ writing. Would you be happy to share the sheet for CAC?
Yeah, I can share that for sure. I will pack that in into the folder as well.
Thanks, Isabella. Thanks, Andre.
Sorry, I think I did not manage to see the chat. I'm not sure where it hid it, but if there comes anything like this, just let me know. You don't need to write it, but afterwards I will also be able to go into the chat as well. Okay. Going further, marketing on trade shows. That's also so I think one of you already, or one team already did that. There it makes sense to check, are you there as an exhibitor or are you there as an active participant? Because also as an active participant, you have the chance to maybe somehow hack through some of trade shows without all the big costs of having an own booth for that. But there are also some ideas, for example, in the German Auma-Messe Datenbank, it's called, and probably within your countries you will also find some kind of database where are existing trade shows that you might be interesting for you, and what are, for example, also hacks for that. Then offline advertising, I think it's especially in these days when everyone goes more and more into the digital space and the online space, there are a lot of untouched spots in the area of offline advertising. I think the most important thing is to get the connect between offline to online, that you know how about the conversions. That might be via a specific QR code, that might be via a specific offer that you give, that you can later check on, okay, I can understand this traffic or these customers came via our offline advertising. And that might be business cards with a specific takeaway. That might be also flyers, and probably some of you already used that. So one good idea that I had from an eye doctor here in my area. Another doctor gave me his business card, and that's the back of his business card. And he looked me into the eye and said, okay, which kind of eye color do you have? And then he somehow has different colors, so eye color business cards. And that was not a real magic or something like this, but it was more than just giving away a normal business card. So there is a more individual connect now to the potential customer, or to me then as a potential customer with this eye doctor. Then offline events, to name it, meetups, hackathons that you are maybe organizing, but that you're also using as an attendee. I think there you can, especially at the top of the funnel and middle of the funnel, find out via a few searches what are typical hacks that you might use for at hackathons, that you might use at meetups. I think therefore it's very important to just actively participate in the relevant events where also your target group is, because for example, we for ourselves found out that that being active at meetups and hackathons is probably not the right way to go for us, because we very often found that at these events where we attended were a lot of people who wanted to, let's say, market something, and that's where almost no one is currently looking or looking after. So that might be a different case for your scenario then. Publicity. This is actually the same with your customer relationships. It's about building up a relationship with journalists, with media, and not sending out mass mails to journalists. I think it's the same. Like, you need to understand where are the blood pressure points of journalists, and where could you deliver a good value to them. It's pretty much the same then also to customers. And therefore there are press portals, there are media editors, there is something like Help a Reporter Out. You might have heard of these, and in some and that might work also for your country. I think this Media Landscapes is an addition, a website where you could find different countries. Then sales. This is probably the most underrated channel, because very often we as founders or first-time founders, we find it very difficult to pick the phone and just ring it, or to use some channels like existing platforms, and to ring the sales channel more. Here it is, the most important part is doing a good prospecting, so finding out who is the right ones to talk to. Good lead generation, so finding out whom do we need to qualify. That might be elements of social selling. So for example, that's a real example with just a very short teaser to someone in the VC area. So that can also convert into an appointment. So then it's sometimes also cold calling, and cold calling works also today. I can confirm you on that. Then appointment setting, doing a demo, and closing it. And there might be some more conversion steps in between. And I think this is on the right, this kind of the fact of that about 44%, so almost every second sales rep is already giving up after the first follow-up call. So this good chance that if you're, let's say, more consistent than the others, there's a good chance to make it also with sales. Then search engine advertising. I think this is not a big use for you. I think what you need to consider these days is probably also checking on alternatives to Google. I know Google is the number one, but probably also with Bing, Yandex, what is relevant for you. That might be also Amazon as search engine, Gelbe Seiten for Germany, or Yellow Pages. They are all something like a search engine, and you might be able to set up advertising on these search engines for getting attention, getting into this consideration, and finding these the right keywords for that. I think I showed you yesterday with Uber Suggest as a small tool. And search engine optimization, that's, let's say, the organic part of that, with also different search engines. I see also that Yelp, Yellow Pages, that these are, for example, also search engines. And SEO almost only comes down to the point of bringing a good landing page, and having the technically right setup in between. So this is the page thing, and understanding what are the right words to track. And yesterday we went into or I think it was on day one, we went into the different levels. Like, you understand the customer on the impulse, on the need, on the solution, and on the offer level. Then social and display advertising, I think we're almost already through it. That's the advertising that you are able to set up on different existing platforms, with Facebook. That might be with Facebook and Instagram in a combination, for example. That's also LinkedIn sponsored posts. And what the good idea on that is the combination of already existing customers from your side, or customers that are in your pipeline, and bringing them into a database where Facebook and the next, I think the next time also will be available via LinkedIn. You can set up these lookalike or the custom audience. So where Facebook as the host can extract a few information out of your existing or pipeline customers and bring it to a much broader range, to which people you also are able then to show them some advertising. Display advertising is more or less like banners on different platforms. That's or on different websites. That's, I think, more on the reducing part. So it's not so often used anymore, and that gives you the maybe the option to be also active in that field, because then if there is less need for that, it gets also cheaper. Then speaking engagements, I think that's a good idea to approach it, because setting up your experience, setting up your expertise, for example, with pitching, having a keynote, setting up yourself for a panel discussion, or introduce yourself and your startup at a meetup. And a good idea to start, if you haven't heard of that, I think most of you have, is Toastmasters. In almost, I think, every bigger city, you will have at least one or more groups of them, or chapters. I'm not really sure how are they called, but if you want to learn how to set up these small speeches or bigger presentations from professionals and together with a group of professionals, it's a good way to start. Then targeting blogs and influencers, that's also at the top of the funnel areas. You are having a good idea or a good start with directories of blogs, with alerts. If you haven't heard of them, so Google Alerts is one good tool to, and that's a for free tool, where you can set up alerts that might be from your competition, that might be from your targeted keywords, and you get informed whenever there comes some relevant news site, or there is some news on that in your specific region or in the whole world. That's a good idea to start with. And also finding out where influencers are in, a good way to start is Hype Auditor for that. Then I think that's almost the last one, unconventional PR. That's like public relations, but more in the area of where it's really cheap, where it cannot be really planned. if it works, because these are actions out of guerrilla marketing, out of marketing stunts that might work and or not. And here that's some small examples, and that in terms of budget, it's probably not that small. For example, what Red Bull did with their jump out of a big hate, and then on the other hand, it maybe makes sense to combine this channel of unconventional PR, for example, with a trade fair where you could set up a specific campaign for that, a guerrilla campaign where you have some creative ideas to get some PR directed to yourself. Then viral marketing. Now that's the last channel of these 19s. Is the purpose of it is finding within your product, within your service, pockets where you could engage your existing customers to a viral action. That might be some kind of a share it with your friends as soon as the customer had a great experience. You very often recognize it, for example, with as soon as you have booked a flight or booked a holiday, you get asked if you want to share that. And that's some kind of a viral pocket for that. And one famous example, I think you know that, is the PS I love you from Hotmail. So what they had as a very small one-line signature at the end of their mail. Yeah, so these were the 19 channels, but what is actually the idea to come with these 19 channels? It's not like you need to go through all of them and be active in all of them. Where we bring customers to, and that might be an idea also for you, is understanding and getting a knowledge of, or getting a good idea of how do these channels work in the area of either bringing new customers or going for branding effects. And on the other level is, does this channel work more punctual, or is it working in a growing way? So that's the goal to get with these 19 channels. And I have an example. How might that look like? We did that, for example, with a coach that was in the B2C area. So he was selling to end consumers his coaching services. We found out that there are some of these channels that might only work so medium or bad for him. That's, for example, sales. That's also the trade show as an attendee. For the sales, I want to show you how is this kind of diagram working like. So sales is your, or with this specific coach, he could take the phone or could take social and go into the social selling. But as soon as he lays down the phone again, it will be very punctual, and there won't be some kind of a growing effect from that. From the immediate impact, that would be probably one of the better channels through all the others here. Then we have found out that there are some medium working channels. One example, the SEA, so search engine advertising. It works also pretty punctual because you switch it on and at some day you switch it off, and afterwards it's not really growing anymore. And it also, this channel would work for him then as a channel for setting up new customers, not only for the branding effects. And then we found out let's say more a sweet spot for channels for him that work pretty well in the area of pretty much content marketing, SEO, and engineering as marketing. That's pretty connected. Then also setting up his expertise at speaking events, and some more. And therefore, I think only just to show this example. So SEO is probably not the channel that brings you directly new customers on this area, but it is a channel that is really growing from time to time. So if you set that up in a good way and you optimize that, what's also in the name, it will be a really sustainable and growing channel for that. And how is now the real execution for that made sense during several projects that we had with customers in a consultative way and also in a executive and operational way. Start with these 19 channels, brainstorm the best within a mixed team. So not only, the best would be not to do it only within your own team, but maybe to bring in some potential customers, potential users, someone from external who brings maybe a completely external view into that. Then brainstorm tangible actions for all these 19 channels, because the main reason for doing this part one is dropping your bias. So we are all biased from what we heard from others, what we saw that might work, and we want to drop that bias and understand in a focused way which kind of actions could reach our customers that we already elaborated in the steps before with the customer empathy map and with the contents that we could create. And here on the picture, this is one really operational example that we had. We on a whiteboard or on a wall, we there named all the 19 channels, and then we gave us a time frame and brainstormed tangible actions, and tangible means what is a real specific action in, for example, in PR that we might do specifically for reaching this customer. So, and therefore we came to these results then. So that's part one. Part two is then getting to a reduction of these ideas that you had before. So first part was dropping your bias. Now it's about evaluating the potential for success. And what you might use is these criteria that we very often use there is give it a points from 1 to 4, where 1 is poor and 4 is very good, in the criteria of what does my gut feeling say about this specific channel? How relevant is this channel to our product or to our service? What are we really expecting for the acquisition costs? Can we really assume that the acquisition costs within this channel will be low, will extremely be high, something like that? Then the amount, how many of the now important customers will we be able to reach? So is this some kind of a channel that is really focused, really targeted, or will we have a lot of additional, let's say, potential customers or other people that we are reaching with it that doesn't make so much sense? And then what are we assuming in terms of timing? How much time will we need for a test in a specific channel? And here, once again, we have made it these days with 4 persons. So everyone had another color for a post-it. Every one of us named these 5 criteria for the specific channel, and in the end, we had a good prioritization order. And then we came to the decision that we would only use the first and most rated 7 to continue with into the next tests. That might be also 8, that might be 10. I think it's out of your what can you handle and where are you really feeling good with. So we then continued with 7 of these channels and going with them into the testing part. So execution part 3 is small and cheap tests that consists of what kind of measures can we set up for that is not really extremely difficult to measure, but that's really easy. That is very often how does a conversion look like from out of this channel via this channel into another action. Then how can we compare the performance between different channels? Because you might have channels that is very or more long-lasting, like SEO, and how can we compare that with sales? Therefore, you need some kind of criteria to compare that and define it. And you might then come to the point that during these tests and campaigns, you stop what doesn't really work and focus on what works. So you reduce it. The ones of you know the traction and the bullseye framework. This is pretty much the bullseye framework without with an exception from that. My experience is that it doesn't make sense to reduce yourself to the max and only have in the end one channel, because that is not really sustainable. With this testing, you will find out about acquisition costs. You will find out about the duration. So where you at the very beginning only had assumptions for that, you will get real data. You will get information about speed. So which channel brings really the speed into the customer acquisition and into the performance. And you will find out there are channels that are really taking time, and maybe at some point you're having more time than money. And on the other hand, there will be channels that are taking more money, but you need to decide on which kind of channel will we be able to execute further. And this will be, so the portfolio will be one result that will elaborate from time to time. You will probably be able to set that up from not from day one, but when you are testing these channels. And what makes sense is finding channels that are working like seeds. So seeds that you are planting into the customer's brain that are not really selling from one day to another. A good example, I think, is email marketing. I explained it a little bit before. If you're from time to time bringing the right value or the right content for the potential customer, at some point where he or she has the blood pressure, he might remember that there was something, this would be the solution to my problem. Another area of the portfolio should be then setting up nets. So nets where potential customers could be stuck in, and you just catch them. That one very obvious channel for that is content marketing. Delivering the right contents works like a good net. And then spears for a lot of especially B2B companies. One of the spears channel will be sales or pre-sales. Then this is again, this is the example of this B2C coach, just to illustrate that. So we have then a portfolio of channels that are working more on the long term, channels that are working on the midterm, and also channels that are really working very focused, targeted, and fast. And doing these or performing then these channel tests, you will find out about how does your funnel look like. That you know which kind of channels are performing very good in our attention area, which channels are performing in the consideration and understanding area, and which channels can support us with converting the customers or the potential customers to a real customer, and also further on building some loyalty, some engagement within our customer base. I think to sum that up, so it is important to understand what is the strategic place. We had on day one, the first and good fundamental part is a good customer development. So understanding the customers extremely deep, and not only on the level the customer is in the age of 35 to 40, but more on the level of where could he consider my or our solution as the right one. then building the right contents for the right customer profiles. And then what we had today, creating a powerful channel portfolio. So a portfolio that consists of spears, nets, and seeds. And as soon as you have built also this channel, you are already in the doing of setting up unit economics. That might be customer acquisition costs in later stage, also the lifetime value as soon as you have converted a customer, and you can then measure and optimize that as well. So here once again, customer development. You build the right content hub that we had. One of these parts is, for example, the sentence to the case. Then creating a powerful channel portfolio and setting up the unit economics. And yeah, so for you as an information, I think I have it in the slides. We have built this, or we have named this for us the Go-to-Market Playbook. And if you want to check once again the steps with a little bit more detail, also connected to some of blog content, you will find that on our site. And how does that look like in our real daily life execution? I think so we're not only producing, let's say, colorful presentations, and I want to show you how would that look like. So our go-to-market roadmap, or the playbook for that, is actually really executing on different tasks in customer understanding, so the customer development. Then we are typically going to content marketing and engineering as marketing. And then we are having all the other channels that might come into action, but the most of them are at the beginning not into the action, because there we are really applying what I showed you before. It makes sense to drop our bias when starting a project and finding out tangible actions for that, and apply it to them as well. Yeah, so that's in the real life. And now I think I've come to the end of our webinar series. You might be interested in what kind of tools can you use, are we using. I think some of them I already showed you during the last days. Here I summed up a list of them. I think what I did not show you before is, for example, this IFTTT. So if this, then that, that's a pretty, or with an alternative Zapier. If you don't know it yet, that's a pretty helpful tool for saving time with some automations. Some automation might be a connect between, as soon as you have some tweet or someone tweets about you, you want to save a line of that in a spreadsheet. Or if you want to, if you yourself publish some content on LinkedIn, the same content should be published on your Facebook profile, something like these automations. Yeah, then Optimize Press. This is some plugin for WordPress, building landing pages. Regular Post, to name it, I think is a very helpful tool as soon as you're in different social platforms, so existing platforms. If you want to reshare from time to time some content that you're having. I think Quora we went through. Hotjar is some kind of a heat map tool to find out where are your users on the website active and where are they not. And then one last thing, I think this is North Data, and I can once again come to here, and I hope that it works. So North Data. This one is, I think it's only in German, but if you're, there might be also other that should be available in other countries under another name as well. We found out that North data, especially for Germany, is pretty helpful if you want to find out who is behind a specific company. I'm not sure if my example would work for WeWork, because sometimes I'm using it directly just for the organizer. If I want to know who is behind, for example, a company like WeWork Germany, I would here find out, and that's also there are premium services, but that is also the free version of it. I would find out who is behind it, what is the Unternehmensgegenstand, so the purpose of the company. I would at some point also understand who is really into, for example, a holding structure. So without giving too much information of that. Okay, I think Screaming Frog, this is what we talked about. Some literature. So one of the big inspiration for me was for sure Traction as the book. But there are also some others. You might have a look into them. One very mighty thing is, I think, the 80-20, because it doesn't make sense to go after every customer. I think we talked about that as well. Yeah, some success stories from the ones who worked with us. I think the newest one is now Aumento. They are a SaaS, later stage startup here near Munich. And we are currently filling their pipeline within the area of CIO 500 companies. So the biggest 500 or 500 to 600 companies in Germany are their potential customers. And they are now applying what I've been telling you during the last days. Yeah, one call to action. If you're interested, or if you say, hey, that makes sense what we are doing, there are two ways we might consider coming together. That's Traction coaching. So we are setting up small workshops or coachings with you, and also the bigger the operational and strategic part is Traction as a service. Yeah, that's, I think, enough of advertising. Once again, to the expectation setting, that were your expectations that I got together until day one. I hope that if I read that now, I hope that I touched almost every of your areas. And I'm now happy to ask you if you are having any further questions.